Hi, my name is Augusta Weiss, and I'm a sophomore student majoring in art history at Amherst College. And in December, I completed a research project called Aesthetics, Access, and Autonomy, an analysis of the visual tools that organize information in the Codex Azcatitlan. The Codex Azcatitlan is an Aztec or Mexica historical manuscript from the early colonial period, specifically the 1560s or the 1570s. It has three main sections, which are a migration history, an imperial history, and an account of the Spanish conquest. It's a really complicated document of about 14 leaves of paper for a total of 56 pages, since it has a bound book format with 2-page spreads. However, only about 50 of those survive. At its core, the Codex Azcatitlan is about Tenochtitlan and Tlatelolco, telling the history of the Mexica and how they came to be in the Valley of Mexico. My focus for this paper was that this is a manuscript that really traverses the boundaries between Mexica and Spanish or European aesthetic traditions. In the migration section, the following devices generally structure the page. There's a path of footprints that runs through the folios, which connects sites of migration, year markers, and textual annotations accompanying pictorial information. So for instance, at the stopping point of Tezcatepec, there's a hill glyph with a mirror symbol referring to Tezcatlipoca, who's the god of the smoking mirror. This is not a pictorial illustration of that place, it's not a landscape, but rather it's conceptual and glyphic representation of a location. To complicate this, there's also a row of 5 blocks above this, which indicate the time in history that the Mexica stopped here in their journey. So in this type of scene or page in the migration section, there's a line through the page that tracks both physical and temporal motion. With these conventions in mind, I looked to the striking pages of the manuscript of Folio 5R, which expand on these boundaries of the two traditions. So this landscape is really simultaneously conceptual and pictorial, and it blends both ways of conveying information. So on this page, the Mexica are still traveling, and they reach the phase of their journey where they get lost. This shows a really rich landscape populated with trees and animals and other organic forms, and it even utilizes techniques like atmospheric perspective, and there's a dynamism within the movement of the figures, not just figures depicted in profile like in the Mexica tradition. So what I argued was that this landscape doesn't actually oppose traditional Mexica approach, but rather it adds new formal elements to what can compose a conceptual representation. So the main element here is the continuity of the footprint path going through this landscape. Usually the footprint path traverses space and time with the different place and time markers I discussed before, but now it also moves through this atmospheric perspectival landscape. There's almost a confusion because they got lost here. So it shows the length of time, and it shows the depth and the duration of that part of the journey in a way that integrates European techniques into Mexica conceptual landscapes. So because the structure here is so reliant on traditional Mexica tools, the composition would have allowed indigenous individuals to see this document and derive meaning from it. And that's not necessarily true for the European individuals who would have seen it. And this intrinsically holds a lot of importance regarding the autonomy of the Mexica artists and their community under colonial confines. It's also really notable that this was a document that focused on history and their personal history, telling about their own story, and it integrates into that story both this distant migration past and also a very recent history of the conquest. So despite the loss against Cortés, the Codex Azcatitlan immortalizes the Spanish conquest as a moment within the rich Mexica chronology, and is formatted for the access of native readership. So thank you for listening. I think this is a really artistically sophisticated and important document, and it's powerful because it really maintains and declares indigenous autonomy in an era of colonialism.